Hi, welcome to part 4 in our exploration of Pacific art or oceanic art. What you're looking at is a contextual photograph. On December 17th, 1953, a newly crowned Queen Elizabeth II and her husband Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, arrived on the island of Fiji, then an English colony, and stayed for 3 days before continuing on their tour of the Commonwealth nations of England in the Pacific Islands. While the precise date of the photograph depicted above is unknown, there is still much that can be learned both about Fijian art and culture in the Queen's historic visit. The first thing you might notice is the photograph is the procession of Fijian women making their way through a group of seated Fijian men and women. Several of the professional women, processing women, are wearing skirts made of bark cloth painted with geometric patterns. So this is an example of such a piece. Bark cloth, or masa, M-A-S-I, as referred to in Fiji, is made by stripping the inner bark of a mulberry tree and soaking the bark, then beating it into strips of cloth that are glued together, often by a paste made of arrowroot. Bold and intricate geometric patterns in red, white, and black are often painted onto the masa. The practice of making masa continues in Fiji, where the cloth is often presented as gifts in important ceremonies such as weddings and funerals, or to commemorate significant events such as the visit by the Queen of England. While in this photograph the masa is only worn by women and not carried as far as can be ascertained in the picture, it is very likely that the women also presented the cloth to the Queen to celebrate the occasion of her visit. What is definitely evident from the photograph are the rolls of woven mats that each woman in the procession carries. Like masa, here I'm going to go back so y'all can see. So there's a photograph. Fijian mats served and continue to serve as an important purpose in Fijian society as a type of ritual exchange and tribute made by women. So remember we had talked about these very distinct gender roles in Pacific and Oceanic art that were designated to women and men with, very specific tasks or mediums that they worked in, depending on the Pacific culture that we were studying. Fijian mats are begun by stripping, boiling, drying, blackening, and then softening leaves from the pandanus plant, and that's spelled Pandanus. The dried leaves are then woven into tight, often diagonal patterns that culminate in frayed or fringed edges. So this is an example of a mat. So we'll look back at the photograph. While the mats that the women in the photograph are carrying may seem too plain to present to the Queen of England, their simplicity is an indication of their importance. In Fiji, the more simple the design, the more meaningful its function. Fijian artists continue to create mats, and it's a practice that is growing, with many mats being sold at market, often to tourists. With the advent of processed pandanus, they are more widely available than masi, which is the bark cloth, and used heavily in weddings and funeral rituals. In addition to masi and mats, Fijian art also includes elaborately carvings made of wood or ivory, as well as small woven god houses called bore, kalu, which you can see here, which provided a pathway for the god to descend to the priest. Returning to the Queen's visit in 1953, while in Fiji, she visited hospitals and schools and held meetings with various Fijian politicians. She witnessed the elaborate performance of traditional Fijian dances and songs and even participated in a Kava ceremony, which was and continues to be an important aspect of Fijian culture. The Kava Drink is a kind of tea made from the kava root and is sipped by members of the community in order of importance. On the occasion of the Queen's visit, she was, as you might imagine, given the first sip of kava. In thinking about the importance of the kava ceremony, consider what might happen if everyone from the large group takes a sip from the same cup and of the same liquid. Although sipped in order of hierarchical importance, it would in the end put everyone in the group on the same level before beginning the event meeting before beginning before beginning the event meeting or ceremony. All right, so now we're going to look at some architecture. This is Nan Madol. This is an archaeological site adjacent to the eastern shore of the island of Ponape. That was the capital of the Sodalier dynasty until about 1628. It is in the present day the Maldolun. I can't pronounce it. It's Madolenihmw, and of course, you can see it in my lecture notes, which is a district in the Ponape state, and there's federal states of Micronesia in the Western Pacific Ocean. The city constructed in a lagoon consists of a series of small artificial islands linked by a network of canals. The site core with its stone walls encloses an area approximately 1.5 kilometers long and 0.5 kilometers wide, and it contains nearly 100 artificial islets, which are stone and coral-filled platforms bordered by tidal canals. The name Non Madol means spaces between, and is a reference to the canals that crisscross the ruins. The original name was Son Nan Ling, Reef of Heaven. According to Gene Ashbury in his book about Ponape, the ruined city is one of today's great archaeological enigmas and is sometimes called the Atlantis, the eighth wonder of the world, or the Venice of the Pacific. According to Ponapean legend, Non Mendal was constructed by twin sorcerers, Ashlipa and Asolapa, from the mythical Western Katu or Kanamwaso. I guess this was an area they were from. The brothers arrived in a large canoe seeking a place to build an altar so they could worship the god of agriculture, which you can see his official name in my lecture notes. After several false starts, the two brothers successfully built an altar off Timwin Island where they performed their rituals. In legend, these brothers levitated the huge stones with the aid of a flying dragon. So a little bit of mythology there. Look at some other, it really is quite beautiful. The elite center was a special place of residence for the nobility of the and for mortuary activities presided over by priests. Its population almost certainly did not exceed 1,000 and may have been less than half that. Although many of the residents were chiefs, the majority were commoners. Non-Madol served in part as a way for ruling Sadalur chiefs to organize and control potential rivals by requiring them to live in the city rather than in their home district. So it was a way to keep a watchful eye on his subjects. And, if they, it would be difficult to monitor their activities if they were living far away. Madal Pawi, the mortuary sector, contains about 58 islets in the northeastern area of Non Mandal. Most islets were once occupied by the dwellings of priests. Some islets served as special purpose, maybe food preparation, canoe construction, coconut oil preparation. High walls surrounding the tombs are located on Pinkatel, Karian, and Lemenkau. And I guess these are other areas of the site. but the most prominent is the Royal Mortuary Islet of Non Duas. And I think this is what we're looking at right now, where the walls are 18 to 25 feet high, and they surround a central tomb enclosed within the main courtyard. And this was built by the first Soldilaire chief. And here's a diagram of sort of how it's spread out and the different little islets. On Nan Madol, there is no fresh water or food. Water must be collected and food grown inland. During Solilaire's rule, Ponipayans brought essential food and water by boat. The Soldilaire received food at a particular islet. Around 1628, when also Calical overthrew the Soldilaires, they began what's referred to as the Non Milwaukee Area Era. The non, and I know I'm doing a horrible job pronouncing these. I'm just going to spell it Nahnmwarkis, lived at Non Madol, but had to gather their own water and grow their own food. This is thought to have caused them eventually to abandon Nan Madol and move back to their own districts, although there are other explanations for the deserting of the complex, such as a sharp population decline. Today, Non Madol forms an archaeological district covering more than 18 kilometers squared, and includes the stone architecture built up on a coral flat reef along the shore of Timwin Island, several other artificial islets, and the adjacent Pohnpei main island coastline. The site core, with its stone walls, encloses in an area approximately 1.5 kilometers long by 0.5 kilometers wide, and again, it contains over 100 little artificial islets. Carbon dating indicates that the megalithic construction at Nan Madol began around 1180 AD, with large basalt where large basalt stones were taken from a volcanic plug on the opposite side of Pohnpei. The earliest settlement on Pohnpei was probably around 1 AD, although radiocarbon dating only shows human activity started around 80 to 200 AD. So we're going to look at some more details. Here to the right is a detail of the vertical stacking of columnar basalt pieces of different diameter to create a thick wall. You can see over here, and then on the left is a passage through a wall constructed of the basalt pieces, just to give you an idea. So in 1985, the ruins of Non Madol were declared a National Historic Landmark, and currently a greater effort is being made to preserve them. So that concludes our unit on Pacific and Oceanic art. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be doing some activities to help further our understanding of these pieces. So stay tuned.